Well, I'm Alphonso Sanders. I chair the Fine Arts Department at Mississippi Valley State University. Also the director of the B.B. King Recording Studio on the campus. And I'm the founding director for the B.B. King Day Symposium that we're embarking on this week. Born in Dawson, Georgia. That's the birthplace of Otis Redding. Many people who know that history know about it. And my parents moved to the Atlanta area, which is, where I still visit them now. I think about my beginning as a musician and realize that I was not ignorant of music, even though I was not playing an instrument. Like my grandmother used to always watch the Lawrence Welk show. So in terms of my music history, I realized that I was being introduced to music through television, and much of that was sticking into my mind, whether I understood it or not. So by the time I did get an instrument in 10th grade to learn to play, I already felt like I knew things about music innately, some kind of a way, and mainly I would watch shows, like Lawrence Welk. You'd hear music. I would go over to my great granddad's house, and I would listen to the radio at noon hour and hear lots of interesting things that were becoming a part of my subconscious, I would say. And so when I did start doing music, I found that stuff surfaced. My first gig, seems like I remember playing a little club spot, there in Dawson, Georgia. I was with a little band. I cannot remember the name of the band, but I remember the guy, little guy that we called Deucey. His name was Robert McCrae. He was a bass player, but at that time he was a leader too of the band. And I just can't remember the name of the band though. But we ended up playing some little local spots, and ultimately I stayed with bands from the 10th grade through my senior year, and ended up playing in a band that was hired to do my senior prom. So that was my way to get into the senior prom. Got paid that night. My idea of discovering the blues came from listening to older men talk about it, and I don't think that there's a one definition thing for the blues, because it's still all about a feeling, and your feeling could be totally different from my feeling, but we could still title it the blues. And most of the time, it's always about from what we can tell and what I understand it to be, it's always about a suffering. And one of the older guys that I managed to play around, David Lee Durham, who was from Indianola, Mississippi, I asked him, I said, David, what's the blues? And David had a high-pitched voice. He said, Fonzo, he said, the blues is when you work all week long, you take your money, bring it home and give it to your woman, and she turn around and give it to another man. And of course, that just got me right there. I said, yeah, that's a feeling that's cutting deep, deep, deep into your soul. And I think that's what the blues is. It's just a feeling that cuts deep into your soul. My biggest success, man, I think having 2 children. And I think most people can just say that's the miracle of all miracles, is to see your hereditary or genetic code survive, So yeah, that was a happiness there. I have a daughter and a son, Tamara and Keith, and I think that's the highlight of my life, basically. Man, mistakes. I don't even know if I have any, a lot of wrong turns, yeah, but it seems like they always come back out to you take the low road and I take the high road, and we'll all meet up together somewhere on the other side. I don't know. I don't even know how to answer a question like that. But I do know if I had my musical choice, it would to have played more, you know, practiced more, and tried to arrive at what I understand now about music. But I think somewhere in the line of duty, because I've split the task between becoming an educator and a player or a performer type. I think that sometimes I look at that and wonder what it would be like to have really mastered, you know, a craft like playing an instrument. You got to have found your love, or else it's just going to be another task that you're trying to do every day. And if I always tell students, you know, if you can get out of music, get out of it. But if you can't get out of it, that means it is rooted into your destiny, then you're going to be okay. And it doesn't matter about, like, I don't feel like I've never been successful in it. Sometimes I look at it as though it's something I love doing every day. I get up and I don't mind, you know, getting to whatever musical task I have at hand that day. I spent at least over a decade, you know, with B.B. King doing clinics, you know, at the university. And I always knew he had a heart, you know, for continued education. And music was one of those things, of course, that he was doing, and he was doing it well. But he always thought about ways to do music education better. And so he didn't mind sharing his life, he didn't mind sharing his understanding about it, you know, and especially his gift, you know, to the world as we know it, the blues. Well, when he died, I knew that as an educator, I would have to do something. So I made at least a pitch to the university. We came up with the idea to do a resolution to present to the B.B. King Museum and his family at the time, that we would continue the legacy of B.B. King through a B.B. King Day. And so when we started it, we realized that from an educational standpoint, we would have to do it as a symposium, gather people together to talk, to perform, and to basically, I don't even see it more as a symposium because that might sound too educational, but it seems like it's a family reunion of a sort. The 3 years have always been about people gathering to talk about B.B. King and his influences on their lives, or either the idea that where B.B. has placed us today with his own legacy, can we do more to preserve it, you know, and what does it mean to continue to build our own histories as musicians. The idea about the Chitlin circuit, you know, came through a conversation I was having with Brad Boer, because he was reading a book at the time about the Chitlin circuit, which we're fortunate to have Preston Lauterbach as one of the panelists. He was a writer of the book and a researcher, and started thinking about what that history would be like to get as many people together as we could to talk about that this year, knowing that B.B. King was one of the stars that arose from the Chitlin circuit. And we knew the Chitlin circuit history would take us into other places of discussion. And when I talked to my friend Bobby Rush about it, knowing that he'd already been titled Mr. Chitlin Circuit, he lived that life for, you know, his early years, you know, playing the club circuit. But Bobby always reminded us that the Chitlin Circuit was not just a title, but an actuality that people got paid in food and being in the poor areas that they were playing in throughout Mississippi mainly. Chitlins were the choice dish, you know, and so many times they got paid hard chitlins in a meal, and whatever money they could scrape up from the door, you know, and divide that between the club owner. And he said many times, you know, it was always a battle between that little money that was being made, and sometimes they didn't get paid anything. And so ultimately all they got was chitlins, because it was a place that the club owners needed bands and bands needed a club, you know. And I always laugh when I think about it. I ask my students, I say, why do you need a car? They said, well, so I can go to work. And I said, why do you need a job? So I can pay for my car. Well, I said, well, maybe you didn't want to start that cycle, but necessity breeds, you know, is pattern, you know. So, you know, I think about each year since we started the B.B. King Day Symposium and what it's meant to the attendees, how much it means to the gathering of the participants, the energy level that we continue to see rise. We're watching the Delta, you know, in a place of liveliness that we wouldn't have without the symposium. And so I'm beginning to understand that it's more to it than the idea that I wanted to start something to keep BB's legacy alive. I think the gathering itself is starting to become its own thing, you know, and I'm happy about that.